Welcome to this podcast, Holistic Creators, where we share our unique and universal stories about shaping the future for the 4 Ps: people, planet, purpose, and profit. My name is Swanette. I'm a mental coach and your host of this show. My intention for this show is to inspire you on your path to a holistic future. So welcome. Hello and welcome to my podcast, Holistic Creators. My name is Swanette and I'm your host. Today, my guest is Joanne Light. She grew up in New Jersey and attended Wells College and the George Washington University. After a time teaching US in both public and private setting and one child, she returned to school and received a doctorate in counseling and education. Her dissertation covered women choosing and creating careers while raising children. That was in 1982, and Joanne believes it is a relevant topic today as we observe parents dealing with an incredible number of challenges and choices. She has been married for 49 years and they have raised a family in Massachusetts, just north of Boston. After teaching, she spent her career at a community college where she counseled and advised students, became vice president of student affairs. As a parent and empowerment coach, she helps parents of tweens and teens with navigating life's daily parenting and challenges so that they can feel more positive about themselves as parents, avoid the guilt trap, and have a home filled with more peace and less tension and yelling. She understands parents' feelings of burnout, helplessness, and stress. Life experiences as a parent has truly led her to a passion of working with families. There are so many issues, especially now, managing stress, understanding emotions, dealing with conflict, setting boundaries, reconnecting with your kids, safety in school, etc. It is truly endless. We all love our children and want the best for them, but need to accept and nourish them for who they are and accept our own limits. There is no perfect parent. Parenting is an inside-out process. Reach in and then reach out. So thank you so much for being my guest today on this show.
Thank you for having me, Swanette.
Wow, this is really an important topic, not right now, but for every time, yeah? So we have a saying here, and I think this is really true. It needs a village to educate your children. And as I see now, a lot of parents have to work. Both parents, like mother and father, are out. And the children don't really have this social comfort anymore. So like, in really past time, this has been different to now, and children get more and more isolated, not being really embraced by society and the family anymore. So I really think this is a massive topic. And can you tell us a little bit more how you came into this topic and really felt that this is yours?
Well, as you said, I spent a long time in educational leadership and counseling and advising, and I dealt with a lot of students. And when I was teaching, it was high school students. At the community college, it was mostly underserved students who really had not the same kind of opportunities as many of the young people in the community or around at least in the States. And that's true, I think, all over Europe and Asia, that some kids have a better chance at success. They're born into an opportunity, whereas so many young people, and in this case, it was a lot of young immigrants, first generation immigrants, who face a lot of challenges, as do their parents. So that was really, really a wonderful experience because I was able to learn about different cultures and share with them and help them rise above all the responsibilities. I had lots of students when I was at the college who lived in their cars, who had families of their own, who had little children. So they were doing homework and helping their kids do homework. So and that was before pandemic hit, because I've been retired since about 2015, Swanette. So I really have public service is my thing. Giving back is my thing. And right now, when I retired, I spent more time with family and spent some time and then decided coaching. Coaching is what I should be doing because it's an extension of what I know and was educated in and experienced. So I started with life coaching. I saw people who wanted to change jobs. And again, this was all before pandemic, or who weren't happy balancing in their lives. But I realized that, gee, I've been doing the same thing. It's really an extension of what I'd always done. And I was ready for a new challenge. So I did a couple of things. I thought about what niche I really wanted to work in. And I said, well, I have 3 adult children, all of whom have had their struggles, and in many cases continue to have their struggles. I mean, it's not so easy for even young adults today. I think there are lots of challenges. So I thought, I've had some experience in parenting my oldest daughter, and we could talk that story through. Had some serious mental health issues. And I also was very concerned about what's going on in the world. And I said, we are responsible, and I think my generation, though we started out with social justice and talking about important issues, and then we kind of lost it, I feel, and we've really let it go. And I'm concerned that my generation, who now are more grandparents, but are the next generation of parents, really is going to be responsible for raising competent, resilient, emotionally stable kids, because we need new leadership. We need a change. And so whatever I do in my practice, and if it involves just doing things like this, like podcasting and sharing with people and meeting people along the way, I feel like I'm doing what I can to help raise the next generation. So that's how I came to parent coaching. I decided I need to work with the parents, and I chose tweens and teens because, yes, toddlers are very challenging, but tweens and teens have unique challenges, and their parents have unique challenges. So that's how I came to be in this spot right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I hear you. And what I think is also from like my generation growing up so differently, what I can see in the generations right now, because I really was out in the nature. I played with soil, and I was like kind of really in the connection with the earth, so to say, and like playing with animals. And like my parents didn't like it when I brought in the frogs in the house, but yeah, so it was like, we were in the mud, and we climbed mountains, we climbed trees and fell out, and did roller skating on the street and between the cars. And so this was really a different life than seeing now the kids running around, having their
devices in their hands,
devices in the hand, and being kind more in an artificial world than in the real world. So as you're doing this, like you had your own children, and now you're counseling or coaching parents with their children. Did you see different challenges appearing now?
I say definitely yes. From my own experience now, I grew up in a city. It was a pretty, middle of the road, lower middle class city in New Jersey. And of course there weren't mountains, and we sometimes played in the mud. But the key to what you were saying is, I remember we used to go and play outside, be it stickball or imaginary whatever, and just roaming kind of the neighborhood, going down to the end of the street and getting an ice cream cone. And we never went back inside when the weather was right, and when we weren't in school, until we got a call, oh, come on in for dinner, people screaming, dinner. So it's very different now, because I think parents, they want their children to be outside, but there's a lot of fear, I think, in our parents today. I mean, I'm not saying it's not sensible. I mean, there's so many things out there the list is endless, but I try to talk to parents about parenting from a place of fear versus parenting from a place of trust. And that takes work and time, but it's a very different generation. And what you bring up with their devices, we my generation, as technology developed and we discovered the internet and Google, we had an online world and an offline world. There was a whole offline world. I think these kids don't have a division of an offline and an online world. It's all one. So when we talk to kids about, well, when you're online, well, that's no different from them sitting down and eating dinner or walking down the street or going to school. It's all kind of become one thing. I think our kids, and it's wonderful in some ways, but it can be very, I think, damaging. And it's very, parents need to be pretty savvy on understanding what's on the internet and what their kids are doing. And many parents think they know what their kids are doing, but trust me, the kids know how to get around every parental control you can come up with. And more important than controlling what they're, or watching what they're doing online, is talking about it and communicating and understanding what's important to them. Teens in particular, you know, I may be going off, but their brains are like developing at such a huge speed. And they're super learners. You can teach a teen probably anything because their brains are plastic and developing and shedding old information they don't need anymore. So they're acquiring new knowledge and they can take on any passion or any interest. So be curious about your teens. The problem with teens is in their brains, their emotional side of their brains are way more developed and high strung and volatile and so on and so on. And the front of their brains, where they have cognitive, reasonable, rational thinking, it hasn't caught up. It doesn't, you know, young people's brains are not fully developed in the cognition, in the learning, not in the learning, but in the thinking, the choice making, the decision making piece until they're like 25 or 26. So neuroscientists know that, you know, the back of the brain is developing faster than the front. So it goes from back to front. So I think it's important for parents to know this because there's lots of things that are going on that they blame on hormones or just peer pressure or whatever they blame. There is a lot of it that has to do with how they're developing, which is pretty normal and natural. And actually, it really was only in the 2000s that I think scientists understood this. So when we were growing up, you know, that teenage behavior that was questionable is much better understood now, you know. So I don't know. What was the original question, Swanette? Have I gone off? You asked me if you think it's different. I do think the challenges are indeed different, really.
Yeah, so to get a better idea, like what are the challenges on the one hand the parents have at this time, because they will be different as well, and what are the problems and challenges the tweens and teens do have. So like having it from one perspective and from the other perspective.
Good question. Let's start with the parents. I think they are living in a time of pressure to raise successful children. And parents need to understand that, and this has probably always been true, that your children need you, but your need of them should be just unconditional love as opposed to needing them to make you feel good or feel better. And I think parents often try to control their environment for their children so tightly that they feel that their children are an extension of them. And I think it's important for parents today to let go of some of that intention and to let your children be who they are. I think that's a really hard thing for parents to adjust to. And I feel very strongly about emotional intelligence, because I think that is one of the skills and ingredients that will lead to more leadership, a better world. And I know when I was growing up, it was a loving family. I knew my parents loved me, but there was a lot of anxiety, and it was always don't worry, and we didn't have an emotional vocabulary or conversations about how we were feeling. Maybe we talked about what was going on, and a little bit about strategy, but emotions are key, I feel, for parents today to take on. And it starts with them. One of the things, and you said it when you introduced me, I feel very strongly that parents, it starts with you. When you feel that things are not going well, or you're yelling all the time, or you're engaged, you're exhausted and you're anxious, I understand why you feel that way, but it starts with you. You have to figure out what is it that is creating that angst in you, and examine your inside DNA, so to speak, because how you were raised really affects how you parent. So don't think that your parenting style is going to mess them up for life. You can recognize it, become aware of it, and not pass on to your kids the generational stuff that you don't want to see. But there's a lot of fear around that. So I think one of the biggest challenges for parents today is fear. It really is. And stress. I mean, pandemic hasn't helped, but there's so many things to be afraid of. School shootings, the internet predators, disease, schools not living up to what they need to be to give our kids broad-based education, racism, injustice. I mean, they're just, and a lot of these things have always existed, but they're front and center now, and parents need to have really open, connected conversations with their kids. So I think the challenges for parents today is to be connected. I don't think my parents worried about that. They really didn't. They thought they were doing everything they could for me. And how I was feeling about something, it's not that it wasn't important, but it didn't cross their minds to really dig into that. So I think parents today have the challenge of understanding their own emotions, recognizing them, and dealing with their own big uncomfortable feelings so they can help their kids do that. Because kids who are learning emotional intelligence, Swanette, are going to be better leaders, better decision makers, and it's a set of skills. I mean, I work with people on emotional intelligence all the time, how they can recognize, understand, label it, you know, that old expression, name it to tame it, and they do a much better parenting job, and they are more comfortable in their parenting roles. So that's a challenge that I think parents today have that maybe is a bit new, because it wasn't expected that everybody would talk about how they feel. And I know some people just don't really want to do that even so, but it really is helpful. And for the kids today,
so let me just step in, because I think this is really important what you just said, that to see what is the pattern in the family line, ancestral line, because you often can see that habits, patterns are given over, like the pattern, if you have some like this, for example, alcoholism or aggression or something like that, you can see it is given over from one generation to the next, and it is important to become aware of what are the pattern, what is also the mindset your parents have, and you as parents have, as well as you can see this from your grandparents, no? So for my example, my parents were really different in the personality. So my mother was a really loving, heart warming person, and she was sitting with me and talking with me about emotions and everything. So she was really open in sharing this. Whereas my father, he was not connected to his emotions and was not able to express them, even though I know that he loved me really from the heart as well. He would have given his last coin for me, definitely, yeah. But he was not able to express them. And this comes if I look back into his history, and then looking back how my grandmother behaved and what she has experienced, no? Like being in 2 world wars and always needs to be strong, not showing emotions. And she lost her husband and her daughter, and like, no, so this was really, and my father was in one world war. And so all this together, I can see this, no, that from this line, there was always this, okay, we need to be strong and we need to work hard and getting things done, but we can't spend our time with expressing emotions and doing this kind of thing. So like cuddling or not being close. And so I think this is really important to sit back and have a moment for everybody to understand. So what it is that is your own behavior, your own pattern, your own mindset, your beliefs about the world, and get clarity about that. And one thing is having clarity, and then if it is necessary to get in coaching and reframe that, change that, clear that. Yeah. So this is what I really want to bring out, that being a good parent, what you said, starts within, and then if you get a clarity about your triggers, why you behave in a certain way, then you can change that and interrupt that like this. No, I get the trigger and I always react in this way, but then, okay, take your moment and react in a different way.
And think, breathe. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is hard to do. And it takes practice. I think it takes practice and confidence in yourself. So one of the things parents need to do is have more compassion for themselves. I may sound like I'm, tough and I'm making you think about who you are and where it comes from. And yes, I do believe it starts with you, and you have to, and I didn't always do that myself, but you also need to take care of yourself. If you think you are doing everything for your children and they owe you a debt of gratitude because you are exhausted in trying to do the best for them, that's not really the best way to connect. You need to understand your own values and your family, what you have, your vision of your family values, and you model it. I mean, your kids, you can tell them to be upright citizens and honest, but if they see you behaving in a way that contradicts that, so if you're on the phone and talking to a friend and gossiping, for example, it's a silly little example, but if your kids hear you belittling someone or passing judgment with another person about a third person, I mean, it seems like a silly example, but that is, you're not modeling the behavior that maybe you believe you want your kids, who you want them to be. And lots of times parents forget, they watch you constantly. Even when you think they're not paying attention, they really are, especially those tweens and teens. They don't miss much. And I don't know if I can say this on your podcast, but I always say teens have a really good bullshit, meter. They know that barometer is there. They know when you're full of it. And so being your authentic self takes hard work. So I like to work with parents who are ready and committed to understanding what they want. What do they want? They shouldn't want what I want for them, but whatever it is they want, how they get there is pretty important. And it takes, as you said, there are generational patterns. So if your father was an authoritarian kind of dad who said, no, it doesn't matter, it's my way. It's my house, you do it this way, and that's it. The answer is no. It doesn't leave a lot of room for cooperation. I think if you can collaborate with your kids and you have rules, you should have rules for their safety and their morality, but if you can discuss it with them and explain why you have those rules and what you feel it's going to do for them, maybe they'll have a point of view that will surprise you and make you pivot and change a bit as to how you look at that particular situation. We can learn a lot from our kids, especially with teens, because who knows a teen best but the teen himself or herself? They really understand a lot. I'm not saying you shouldn't, I'm not championing no boundaries. I am not. That is not where I'm at. But I think there needs to be collaboration and connection and communication to make it. So it takes courage to be that kind of parent, I think. It's not easy. But we all want the best for our kids. There's, I think that baby comes and fear and its gnarly tentacles wrap around your heart from the moment oh, I don't know what to do next. Is she sick? Is she happy? Is she, is she going to be able to walk? Is she doing this on time? Is he, it's just, you're constantly worried about things at every stage of their doing. My daughter, who has 2 little ones right now, mentioned to me, she's so worried because during pandemic, a lot of her friends, they're taking their kids all kinds of places, and they're not inclined to do that. So is she doing something wrong by denying them going all these places? You worry about little stuff and bigger things. So you have to kind of work with that fear and try to trust that you're doing what you feel is best for you and your family.
I also like the idea of going into a conversation and I would say like changing the shoes, but this is perhaps not the right wording for that. But like if you understand the perspective of your teen, and your teen understands the perspective of you being the parent. So like, okay, let me step into your situation. How does it feel? What I see from your side, and vice versa. So this is often helpful to get more clarity about why has someone this or this position.
And empathy, it teaches them empathy. And we want, if we all had a bit more empathy and that ability to step into somebody else's shoes and listen. I think another thing from what you're saying and bringing up from my answer there is the conversation, is the communication. And as parents, we do more talking than listening. So another thing I try to do with my parents is to explain to them that, if you are just talking at them and not with them, and if you're doing all the talking, it's better to ask questions, be curious, and get, people say, my kids won't talk to me. They just don't talk to me. They roll their eyes, they go away. You have to just keep trying, ask some questions. Well, what did your friend think about that? I noticed that you're feeling a little maybe depressed or sad or concerned. How do you think what would be a better way of your dealing with that problem with that teacher? You have to ask a lot of open-ended questions and invite them in. And they won't necessarily come every time, but they're taking away something from that you're trusting them to share with you. And if they can share with you, then you'll know what's going on in their lives. Because one of the challenges parents today, I think, have is that they have no idea what their kids are doing sometimes, and they don't like that. They're afraid of that. My parents didn't know what I was doing, but they weren't really thinking about it. Do you know what I mean? I think parents today, it bothers them when they feel out of control. My generation, you didn't know, you didn't pay attention, whatever you were doing outside, but come on in for dinner, that kind of thing. So I think that's a more challenging a place of parenting.
Mm-hmm. So I think this is, on the one hand, the situation the parents are in, and you said like it is good to ask your children about what are their challenges. So what can what are the challenges the teens and tweens are in right now?
Well, I think their challenge is they are having more opportunity to figure out what they want and where they want to go and what they want to be, but they need space and understanding of that. And I think one of the challenges, I think our educational system, at least here in the States, has become too rigid. It needs to be more open. Kids need to learn more things about what it is to go out in the world. They need more training. It's more challenging. What do you need to become an adult? So I think learning about your emotions and controlling your emotions, I think they need a lot of, and the parents do too, a lot of understanding of what I call digital literacy. Being online, or what you're doing online, and how it can be wonderful and how it can be really dangerous. So I think that's a big challenge for kids, because It's one thing to deal with peer pressure when you're in school and with them all day long, but it's a lot harder online. I mean, you can't get away from it. When you're with friends, you could kind of tease somebody and deal with it, but when you do it online, you don't really know, you know, it invites everybody in to that conflict or to that teasing, you know, piece. So I think it's a real challenge for them to be who they are without meeting the expectations of their parents. There are more expectations, I think, now, and more opportunities for kids, which is great, but it's also challenging. They have to really work through that challenge. I think life is hard for these kids because it's really hard to know what the future is going to hold in terms of the environment, in terms of opportunities in jobs. I mean, employment seems in flux, and what, you know, in my day, women were told you be a nurse or a secretary and get married. It was pretty simple, not a lot of choices, or a teacher. But kids today know they can be or do anything, but they need guidance and help in figuring that out. And even their identity. I mean, in teenage years, Swanette, as you know, that's when you decide, who am I? And parents who don't want to let their children explore that and reject or, you know, no, that's not what we want for you, I think make it really hard for kids to be connected. And I think that leads to depression and anxiety, trying drugs, and getting into more dangerous situations. So the challenges are very much related to the internet, to the many more choices that they have, and to the fear of the future. I think climate change, the kids they're worried. You know what I mean? They're really worried about climate change, and a lot more kids are aware of the inequity in our society that has been, you're either down here or you're up here, and it's hard to move between. I think I really have a lot of faith in actually those Gen Zers, the ones who are just turning into tweens and teens. I think with the right support, and I think they're going to be okay. I think they're going to be our saving grace. I have a lot of faith, but it's not going to be easy. This generation, you know, our parents grew up with war and depression, right? And that affected everything they did and how they parented. And these kids have been brought up with, you know, they were born at the end of the whole change in our world after 9/11, and you know, different economic situations and authoritarian leadership that's become so pervasive in the world. So they have different challenges. I mean, every generation. I can't tell you that these kids, our teens today, are facing greater challenges than you and I or anyone else faced. They're just different. They're just different. I don't know if that gets to what you were asking or looking for, but
yeah. I wanted to get an idea what you see as challenges right now, and what I hear from other parents as well is especially this problem of bullying in the internet, on the social media. Like in my time, it was like my 2-3 friends got it, or perhaps it was in my classroom, but it was really a kind of a closed space, so to say.
Exactly, and more contained experience.
Yeah, and now
it was in the schoolyard, not online, for everybody to get involved in.
Yeah, so this is really the difference, that now if your friends start bullying on you on the internet, in the social media, then like everybody can see that and hear that. And what we have seen is that a lot of children right now have these problems and really feel like, you know, they are so exposed to the world with what they're doing, even though wherever you are outside, people are taking pictures and uploading them. So there's kind of no privacy anymore.
That's right.
Yeah, this was also totally different in when I was younger. No,
oh, sure.
Yeah, of course there were the old ladies sitting around and like observing you. But it was not that, it was really public.
This is much more widespread, and actually it's dangerous because the pressure on kids, I mean, kids are looking at pornography from age 9 or 10. So if you as a parent haven't talked to them about what it is or about sex, you should have a talk about sex at every stage. You don't tell an 18-year-old what you'll tell a 9-year-old, but you need to start and have those difficult conversations. Sexting is another danger on the internet. You know, there's a lot of pressure when you have that first relationship. So 13 and 14-year-olds, you know, send me a picture of you naked, and that going back, it's very, very, a lot of pressure on kids today. And maybe we don't hear about it enough, but it can be very demeaning, depressing, upsetting, and then it gets shared. And then you can get accused of child pornography. I mean, kids don't realize those dangers. And honestly, I don't think all parents of teens and tweens are aware of the things that they should be fearing out there. It's pretty important to connect with your child and feel that you have a communication all the way through, because you're right. It's bullying is very different now than it was.
Yeah, also like understanding with whom your children are in contact. Like I'm just going back to my time. So my parents most of the time knew where I was with friends out, who were my friends, who I met. And so now that you can connect to like every person in the world, or almost every person in the world, right, on the internet, how can people like parents understand to whom the child is speaking and how she or he is reacting in front of the camera? So I think this is
online dating. I mean, it's very you have no idea. And parents who say, let me see your phone, I mean, that is not the best way maybe to deal with it. Yes, it's very true. My parents knew if I was up the street at a party, or it's not that simple. You're absolutely right that kids can be talking, yes, to the friends they know from school, but they could be talking to someone way away and having a deep relation, what they believe is a deep relationship, without ever meeting one another. And I don't know, maybe that's the way to go, but it sounds a little dangerous to me. I think, you know, it's not normal interaction, because what you do online and how you can Photoshop or change how you look or what you say, it's not authentic. It's just not the same as having pure social face-to-face relationships. And I worry that it's harder for this generation to be emotionally intelligent unless they get it in school and at home, because on the internet, it's harder to practice those skills. You can't recognize what people's expressions or gestures or tone means. It's harder online. It's harder to understand and express emotions, I think, in that environment. It's difficult.
What do you think about the change of the structure of the families? So when I look back, like going to my mother's family line, so they had a farm, and so all the family was together, like 3 generations under one roof. It was totally normal that everybody had their own job, like what they have to do in the family. And now we see a lot of like mothers that have to raise the kids alone, or like both parents are working and the children are in the school for all the day, or even start in kindergarten or something like that. So I see that this is a huge difference between being really embraced by a huge family, or like being kind of, yes, alone perhaps as a child. What do you think of that?
I think that's the kids don't know any different, and I think they adjust, and some of them are going to be just fine. But I think, and much of the research shows, that kids who have more than one caretaker, people who are looking out for them, be it a mentor, a coach, a teacher, are going to be more emotionally healthy than kids who are isolated and who have a working mother or a single working mother or a single working dad who has limited family around. I see it changing some, but everybody dispersed. After a certain, my growing up, all my relatives lived in the same area. Maybe not under one roof, but in a general same area. And my father's side of the family, the same. But kids today, people moving are on the go all the time. So they don't necessarily grow up meeting and being with cousins and uncles and aunts and grandparents. So people are living longer. So kids are more apt to have grandparents, which I think is great. But I think the research shows that not having a lot of adults in your life who matter, who care about you, is very isolating and doesn't lead to your success. Many will be fine, but it's a lot harder. I think having caring adults is key to kids growing into who they need to be.
I would like to jump a little bit back in this interview. You said that you would like also to share a little bit the story of your own daughter and what have been the challenges she had. And it would be interesting how she also overcame them, and now as she's raising kids, how she can handle this. So can you, go deep as you like. So what you can share, please share that.
Well, I have two daughters. My oldest daughter is not married, is not really able to keep stable relationships. She's 100% better, but she was a bright child who had musical talent and lots of good friends. And then she went off to high school and got involved and parents worry about this all the time, in a not so great crowd. Now, if she were a more self-confident, emotionally intelligent child, she might not have gotten so off base, but she was doing drugs, she was skipping school. That was high school, and she was anxious. Her biggest problem is her anxiety. So while she was in high school, got help for her. We insisted she go to a therapist. She was in several programs locally here in Boston at McLean Hospital, but she wasn't ready. She was still suffering with that internal pain. But somehow managed, we never could figure out how. She went off to college, and she had really good friends and did well for a few years. But after she graduated, she went on to grad school, but she was clearly depressed and anxious and unable to make good decisions and to hold the line on what she needed. It was very painful for all of us. She became very needy and pretty depressed, and then went off and got back into the drugs. So when we finally said, look, you either go to rehab or we can't help anymore, she did, and she's 1,000% better, but life is hard for her. When you see your child struggling like this, first of all, you get guilt-ridden. Oh, what did I do wrong? This must be my fault, which as a parent is a horrible feeling, and probably every parent at some point that worries, okay, I'm messing them up for life, which is another reason, a little off the subject, and I'll go back, Swanette, why I think you need to work out your issues so that your kids, when they get on the couch or go to therapy, don't have to work out your issues and their issues. Do you know what I mean? I think it gets, so I don't think I had fully looked into myself and understood where my anxiety was coming from, because I let that permeate, and my fear for, oh, what will happen to her? What if she can't get better? What if she has no relationships? What if she's all alone? All those, that didn't help, that negative um, responses, those negative thoughts. So I talk to parents all the time about reframing some of that. So that was a very difficult time. And to this day, she's still, she lives alone. She does her thing. She can work. She's smart. It gets in the way sometimes, but she will, I don't think, has a chance at what she would see as a normal life. So when your children have mental health issues, it's very difficult. And I think a lot more kids do today, or at least we're diagnosing them, recognizing them, and acknowledging the fact that there are a lot of mental health issues. But the issue when she was having this issue, and when it really disrupted the family. So let's go back to the family unit. She was the oldest. She had a sister and a brother, and everybody got affected by her anxiety and her problem. And my husband and I were so engaged in working and quote unquote trying to fix, which is not really, I mean, you can help and support, but you can't fix, excuse me, much of anything. It affected the whole family. Now my kids all as young adults have come together and they have different but good relationships. But for a while, neither her sister or brother wanted to be with her. It was really very, it was sad. It was challenging. I understood because her behavior was erratic and there was lots of anger on all sides. So that really is one experience that led me to wanting to be with parents and work with them and help them understand what was going on.
Yeah, so this is even a topic that if you have children that are depressed or have emotional problems and like fear they're not fitting in the society, and then okay, come in contact with other peers that bring them even more down. This is really a challenge for the parents, and definitely this kind of self-talk that comes up. So what have I done wrong? I'm feeling guilty about that they are not on the best way, and all this
not a quote right path or whatever.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. And one of the best things my husband and I did was at one point we found a group of parents whose children had a similar diagnosis, the same kind of problem. It was like 8 of us, and we used to meet with a social worker, and we did that monthly for a long time. And that was very helpful. And that's another reason why I encourage parents to look to coaching and support circles, because if you see that you're not alone, there's something about you when your child is challenged, you do, as you said, all that negative self-talk and take so much responsibility, and you're not alone. And eventually your kids have to make choices and become adults. And if we try so hard to manage and remove all obstacles out of their way so they can flourish in the way you think they should, it's hard. You feel so alone, and support is really great. Self-care and support.
So at the moment, and in all the countries, it looks a little bit different, but we are still in this time of the pandemic. And what became obvious in the statistics is that more and more children try suicide.
Yeah, it's the second leading, in the United States, it's the second leading cause of death of people ages 10 to 24. That's astounding. It's really very high, and suicidal ideation is really common. When they look to kids and do polling, kids, high percentages say yes, they've been depressed, or their friends have been bullied, or they are depressed, or they have thought about suicide. That's pretty frightening. I think the country, at least here, I feel like people are noticing and making mental health a bigger issue than it ever has been. We always, talk about physical health and prevention, but we don't do as good a job, at least here, in mental health and prevention. And I think that's the pandemic. If there's a silver lining, it's that more and more of the adults of the world and the leaders of all the organizations and even businesses are realizing that mental health create problems for even for business. I mean, corporate now is looking at emotional intelligence as a trait, a skill that they want their people to have, because otherwise, I mean, the amount of money that's lost in productivity from mental health problems, it's something like 35%. People, need mental health days. They need support because it's just very prevalent. So maybe that's a little off topic, but suicide is among teens to think of 11-year-olds who feel that they have no one who cares about them enough for them not to take their lives it's shocking. It's so upsetting.
I think we are not out of topic because we are going back to what we have already spoken about, how necessary it is to speak with your children, to be emotional, open to ask questions, and be also sensitive for the signs they perhaps give you or share on their social media about how they are feeling, so that you can prevent this. And of course, if you are not able to prevent it by your own, get in contact with professionals who can help.
Right. Yeah. Reach out. It's not selfish to look out for yourself, and it's not shameful to ask for help. I totally believe in asking for support, and I learned that firsthand, that is so necessary, and we can't belittle ourselves if we can't do it all ourselves. And as you said in the very beginning, it takes a village.
Yeah. So if people are now feeling that they perhaps would like to have support from you, how can they reach out to you?
Well, I left you a couple of my website. I do have a YouTube page, which I think on my website you can get to my YouTube page, you can get to my Facebook page, and there's another link that will lead you to information about me, and you can submit your email and I will get in touch with you. But also, if people want to directly email me, I'm not taking on millions of clients. I'm not like overwhelmed all the time. I don't do it all the time. So if people want to ask some questions or just follow up on any piece of this conversation or have other questions about their own kids, they should just email me. And my email, I could put it in the chat, but it's joanne@joannehlight.com.
Okay. And you have a free giveaway. Can you tell us a little bit more about what is this about?
Yeah, I think I probably touched on a lot of it. It's a free gift that is a guide to like tips for putting the joy back in parenting. What you can do to try to diminish some of the fear, how to take care of yourself, how to ask for help. I talk about in that little, and it's a PDF, and letting go. And if people get this and read it and think about it and then want to be in touch, they can add their name and email at the bottom of this form, and I will be in touch. I will get back to them and schedule a complimentary strategy session and offer some of my programs. I also, if they go to my website, hopefully they can find out events, things that I've been working on. And the parent series that I'm currently doing, which I've only done 2 out of 6, those videos, those sessions, those webinars will also, I'm sure, be online at some point down the road. So if people are interested in that, they should email me and I'll hook them up with that, because it is, I'm involved and there are like 11 other experts on current topics, social media, finances, all kinds of things about health and wellness and parenting, spirituality and parenting. So I'd be happy to share that information.
Wow, thank you so much. I will put all the links down in the show notes so that it is easy for you, my audience, to just click and get in contact with Joanne. And now, last but not least, can you give us some quick tips at the end that people can just take and go with?
Well, again, be self-aware. Really think about how you're feeling and who you are and what your vision of for your family, what you want. And be open and honest and willing to, if you don't feel you have a great connection right now with your kids, work on it. There's always time to repair, because you want that relationship and that connection to go way beyond their teenage years. You want, when they're adults, to still feel connected, for there to be a family bond. So it's a little hard work, but really dig in. And I think you can have, in the end, a better experience, and you'll be doing your kids a favor. They love you, and they need you. I mean, the only other thing I want to remind parents is when they're teenagers and you just feel like, oh, this will pass, I'm just going to get through it. That's not a good attitude, because they may not act like they need you, but they need you the most during those years.
Wow, thank you so much for these last words. Yeah, and for being my guest and sharing also your own story. Thanks for being my guest today.
Thank you.
Okay, see you. Bye.
Bye-bye, Swanette.
Thank you for listening or watching my podcast, Holistic Creators. If you want to know more about how I can help and support you, have a look at my website, spiritualchangemaker.com. You can also join my Facebook group, Spiritual Changemakers Community. Stay tuned for the next episode by subscribing to this channel. And you also can check the previous episodes.